What's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we'll be taking a look over here at the Bitcoin price chart and the altcoin market. As obviously everybody should know, last Friday, we witnessed the largest liquidation in the history of the cryptocurrency market, which CoinGlass reported a record $19 billion, dwarfing anything we've ever seen before in this market, ever. This, of course, created the biggest wicks we've seen in a long time over here on these market caps, like the altcoin market cap of others, which is everything excluding the top 10. Total Three's insane wick, and of course XRP's insane wick, which varied on different exchanges, hitting as low as 80 cents on Binance, $1.60 on Bitstamp, $1.70 on Coinbase. Wicks don't really matter so much, but obviously crazy price action that happened there on Friday as the liquidation occurred. Now, when it came to that and all the things that I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, that was the major thing that was scaring me or startling me in the market, is that we would see something like that. So getting through that phase, we're past that phase now of talking about all those other things. There's still a lot of things kind of overhanging right now, like when it comes to silver being in its all-time high. It did close its weekly time frame up there last week. It's still marching there this week. However, we are still like in a funky moment here because it's Columbus Day. The stock market's closed today. So a lot of price action we're seeing is kind of like a liquid weekend price action right now, at least in crypto and in futures markets. But in this video, I wanted to kind of just like talk about where we are now, right? We're still left with things like silver. We're still left with things like the DXY potentially double bottoming. We're still entering into a Fed rate cut environment. All those things still sit there. And now we're left with the question of whether or not was that the mark of the start of the bear market. We can go all over social media and we'll see, no, that was like the mark of C19 happened, right? We experienced, and I was making YouTube videos during that time, we experienced a major liquidation in markets, and that marked our actual low, and we went up only from there on out for like the next year, right? So social media's narrative is essentially, it's like C19, right? The difference, of course, for things like C19 is that we were in a prolonged bear market, and that did mark the bottom after a prolonged bear market. This is obviously coming from much higher prices to see this type of behavior. This isn't happening after Bitcoin's been in some type of bear market for a couple of years. This is happening after it's been in a bull market. So we're left with kind of like a complicated picture at this point, and where I can see a little bit of an argument of both sides from here now that we've gotten through this, right? So I don't want to come on here and be like, hey, that guy that I was 2 weeks ago, I'm aggressively that guy now. No, we got through that event. Now we're in a new environment, and it's trying to figure out how to navigate that particular environment, which can be very difficult. And I can tell you that as I speak, I will not speak with any certainties. I'll just kind of present things and show them from kind of particular different angles. And I think I can kind of like show you, here's like the bear case again, and here's like the bull case again, right? The bear case, of course, for Bitcoin is that it is what we were talking about, that this was Wyckoff distribution, that all the bulls got sucked in at the top for Q4, Fed rate cuts. They all got sucked in right at the top. And what we're witnessing here is really just a reflexivity bounce that's happening here off of this before this thing really starts to peter out and starts drifting its way down. The same would also be true if we looked at things like Ethereum and you reflect back on what happened at the peak of Ethereum back in 2021, that there was a major liquidation that happened right here. This, of course, occurs after Bitcoin has already done this by setting the secondary high in here, and it goes in for a liquidation. But notice there is a strong reflexivity bounce that comes in here for Ethereum, still pushing that price up, nearly 30%. You head over here to current times right now. That's what that looked like. Currently, you're sitting at about 22, right? So seeing these reflexivity bounces happen after these major liquidations, it's not uncommon for that to happen in the event that you are entering into a bear market. Now, the one thing that most of my viewers probably care about is what about XRP, right? So this has been something we've watched, and we've talked about this for months on end, that if we started producing something like this, that would be the major concern for XRP. We'll throw another one on here in a minute, but performing actions like this to come back for some type of underside back test would be expected to happen in here. Even in our other examples where we saw the timing was matching exactly of what happened back in 2021, it still would be expected that there would likely be underside back testing happening in here, whether that's today or tomorrow, or if that's in a month from right now, that in the event of it being a bear market, coming back to these levels of 270 or 269 all the way up to 285 or so also would seem pretty reasonable for some type of an underside backtest if this is the start of a bear market. Now, remember, I will show you things from a different angle here in just a second for like the bulls, but I want to be fair and balanced here and show it from this angle as well. After an event like this does occur, what can commonly happen afterwards? And so that's why we talk about, here's kind of what can happen over here with Bitcoin after you go into Wyckoff distribution, you slam back into the lows. Reflexivity bounce is totally normal to happen. For Ethereum, right? A big fall off the lows, just like that. These are like literally the exact same size moves that happened off of the top. A reflexivity bounce is totally normal to happen in here. Everything's like XRP, going back and revisiting the underside of the broken support, totally normal to happen in here, right? So we're really left in this moment right here trying to determine, whether or not this is the kickoff of an actual prolonged bear market happening in here, or like social media is claiming, is it, like a C19 sell-off, right? Based on where we stand today, it's hard to not sit here and say, well, we really kind of just acted like what does happen when you kick off a bear market. That's the Wyckoff distribution. That was the upthrust after distribution, right? This is the beginning phases of the sign of weakness starting to form in here. Ethereum just doing some type of little quick pullback in here. And XRP just performing an underside backtest after this massive breakdown happening in here. When we witnessed during trading hours, of course, the Russell 2000 get obliterated, and we'll have to see what happens here in the next couple of weeks, and at least when we get in actual market hours and not holiday hours like we are today. So it feels like we are entering into an environment right now of like defense, right? There's a major breakdown that just happened in the market. We're getting blessed with some type of ricochet happening right here. It's common to get these ricochets to happen. Totally common to get these ricochets to happen, and totally common for these things to come back and do underside back tests before things get really prolonged, right? In the current environment we're in today, right? That has to be like front and center of my mind right now. And the reason why in those environments of like this right now, with this particular bounce that we're getting after going through that type of liquidation, is that we typically see these types of bounces happen after these environments happen. XRP even had a really amazing bounce that came out over here that eventually just petered out, right? But in addition, so does Bitcoin typically do that, and so does Ethereum. And these things do commonly do that and go back and hit them, whether they take a little bit longer or if they are really quick. And the extreme challenge about being in this type of environment right here is whether or not is it going to just do it really quickly right now and then revert itself back over really fast, never really giving an opportunity back at these levels ever again, or at least for a long time. Similarly to how Ethereum did right in here in 2021. Then never revisited those prices again right here until just now in 2025. But it just kind of kept grinding and then boom. Or are we going to get some time to kind of think about this thing? It'll kind of peter out. It'll range here for some time and then, eventually go up there. We can see other confluences happening at the same time, and then things end up stalling and there's just lots of time to think about it, right? Or is it just going to happen very quickly right here, right now, right? Those are the challenges faced today and in the coming days. And I want to reiterate, right? When I come on here and I present this information, people don't like to see it from this angle quite often. We experienced that over the last 2 weeks of looking at it through this lens. And, this played out really how it was thought it could happen, right? And now we're in the environment of saying, okay, now what, right? And it's happening very quickly. And it's time to say, okay, is this an ABC correction? That was it? That marked the bottom? Or was this the beginning of an absolute bear? So we're starting with the lens of looking at it through that on being a bear, right? And so these are the things to be mindful of. For me, these are the things that I'm watching. I think it's going to be a very difficult environment right here in determining exactly how things could play, because you have environments that can happen like this, that like if it actually is the breakdown and the start of the bear, that you could have lots of ranging behavior happen in here, which makes it very difficult to trade. Or you could get no ranging behavior and just a quick back test and then a slow grind down. That's where we are today. We're very close to an underside back test happening in here. Very close to what would be just like a ricochet over here for Ethereum. and very close to what would just be a quick little bounce off of those lows in a Wyckoff distribution working into a sign of weakness for Bitcoin. That's where we are today. Those are the things that I'm watching for on things like XRP, real on edge about really just this whole area in here performing some type of major resistance for XRP that'll hold it down for a long time. Same goes for Bitcoin, that this area is going to hold Bitcoin down for a long time. And that would obviously imply the same thing for Ethereum, that this area would hold it down for a very long time. Nothing is in absolutes, but you can clearly see why those would be the concerns of where we are currently today and the areas that I'm really paying attention to. But with nothing being in absolutes, what would happen if all of those things changed? What would happen if Ethereum went and busted into a new high? What would happen if Bitcoin went and busted into a new high? And what would happen if XRP busted up in here and got like above 320? That picture would change drastically, right? We'd be right back into these discussions all again that Ethereum's been in this long crash, retrace, reaccumulation. Boom, there's a massive liquidation. Everything's been flushed. It's ready. Time to go. Bitcoin, who knows how high? Who knows? But then XRP would be implying, right? What did it do? It did a ABC correction, of course, after coming off of a 702 Fibonacci retracement. And an example of something like that happening would be like with Bitcoin, that, we're ricocheting off of the lows. You get up here and just kind of struggle, but then ultimately have a bigger move up in here. Then likely it's got to peter out and then go something like that, right? That would change the picture entirely. If prices got up in here. It's not a guarantee by any means, or my thoughts would be thinking, hey, we get to here, this automatically means we go straight line up and go to the moon. But getting there obviously negates any type of big resistance here or underside back test destroying it, right? So some type of big push out of here and push for Bitcoin and push for Ethereum clearly changes the picture of all of those things, right? And there's a decent argument for it, because still to this day, this Bitcoin dominance has not fallen. And when we go through this liquidation, what happens? The Bitcoin dominance spikes its way up back to that 702, then it pulls itself down. You can even zoom in on that range a little bit tighter in there and see it even hit the 702 retracement here on this tiny range. And then, of course, you go to those monthly timeframes and you see still that, right, these things have all flipped in here. There's something going on here with this Bitcoin dominance, right? So without speaking in absolutes, right, you sit there and you say, okay, well, there's still something going on in here. And if Ethereum busted out of here, if XRP fired its way above like 320, and if Bitcoin got out of here, well, the picture would change dramatically, right? And I'm not coming on here to say that's impossible to happen. The level of intensity that I was giving for the last couple of weeks is very different after we've now gone through that massive liquidation. It's really that we're in this different environment right now of really trying to determine which way is this thing going over the course of the next year. And with that type of liquidation, you're left with a couple of different scenarios, right? Either that it was some type of massive liquidation to mark a bottom and then things finally can go out, or it was a legitimate breakdown into an actual bear market. Now, what I can say is I think it's a very, very high risk bet to be betting that it's going into a bull market. I think you have a lot of things that just happen on these charts that are still implying that this is really exactly what you would expect for like the kickstart of an actual bear. You have the double bottom of the DXY. You have silver closing above $50. You have all these structures on things like XRP and Bitcoin of exactly what you would expect for the kickstart of a bear market to happen. And betting otherwise is really betting against all of that. I get it. You got that Bitcoin dominance still sitting there, but you are betting against all these other things by betting on bull market versus bear market. And I'm not here to tell you which way to bet, but I'm just saying, when you're betting, which is what we're all doing, understand the bet that you're taking here, right? Social media is obviously going to tell you that it's still a bull market, right? We saw what they just did for the last couple of weeks, being very definitive that this is a bull market. It's not going to be a surprise that they're still going to say it's a bull market, right? So many people got caught wrong-footed. It's very difficult to change pace, change thought, to think I was wrong, right? And I understand how that is. It's very difficult to say, wow, I was wrong, or to even comprehend that, or get bypass that cognitive dissonance. It's very difficult. And certainly no influencers want to swap from spending all that time saying, hey, we're in a bull market, then the massive liquidation happens, and then to say, just kidding, we're in a bear market, better sell everything right here on this downside backtest, none of us are going to get rich. That's not easy for an influencer to do, right? So it should be expected that social media, of course, is going to say we're entering into a bull, but I'm just going to try to present it, hey, look, like these are the things that we talked about for a long time, that if this type of behavior manifested, this would be the concern that would end up happening, and that it's not uncommon for there to be an underside back test. So when we're in this current environment right now, it's still having to remain in that mindset that, hey, look, it actually kind of did what we thought was going to happen. It did what I thought was going to happen, that this was a upthrust after distribution for Bitcoin. And until proven otherwise, still just kind of have to sit there and say, yeah, that's still the major concern right now. I've outlined things to say, hey, look, like this would make the picture look a lot different. And that would be like if Ethereum broke out or XRP shot above 320, 340, if Bitcoin set a new all-time high, then it would be like, okay, well, now we've done all these things. We did this massive liquidation. That actually does now look like a mark of a low with how the market is now reacting to it. And that's the thing that has to happen, is we have to see an actual reaction to prove that that's what that was. And a reaction for that on XRP is to get back to like 340. A reaction for that for Bitcoin is to set a new high. A reaction for Ethereum is to set a new high. But currently right now, the reactions that we are seeing, albeit amazing that they've come back so fast, it's not uncommon for that to happen. It's not uncommon for very quick reactions to come shooting back to the upside and for it to still be stuck underneath that broken down support. And so in the coming days and weeks, we're just going to kind of trying to determine whether or not that's going to, eventually get out of there or not. The difficult thing that everybody's going to kind of be placed in is that everybody's going to be on their own on making decisions, right? And are those decisions going to have to be coming up very quickly? And when I say quickly, I mean today, tomorrow, a month from now. I don't know. We'll obviously be here covering it at all times, but the market was really gracious, that I was able to start bear week, and it still gave 10 whole days before things started to kind of deteriorate. I know in this type of environment, it likely wouldn't be like that, right? Like things could go one way or the other very rapidly. We're so volatile. You have to look back on it that it was just 3 days ago, right? The massive liquidation. Here we are 3 days later, getting back near the underside, right? And then how things can revert back the other way or bust the other way. It can all happen so fast that luxury of 10-day notice, it's not going to be there. And it's not because I don't want to do it or that I'm refusing to do it. It's that if it transpires in something like that, right, we would just be looking at a couple of days. And with the way ranges behave, it could end up being weeks. And the best messaging I can give like here in this like couple of days moment is that I can kind of see what it's going to be like for the channel in the event that, we kind of start pulling back from right here and what that challenge is going to be right now. And that's why I say like, decisions could be coming up quickly, right? Like locking in, having conviction. What are you doing? Right? I'm never going to tell you what to do, but it seems like we're at that moment, because in the event that this does end up becoming a resistance in here, well, we could see that things could just end up pulling back and down and down and never come back up to hit higher. Whereas alternatively, we could produce that exact same type of pullback and pull back up in here and get higher. And then there's better opportunities later, right? And there won't be a way to know that in here. There just won't be a way to know. This thing could pull back down in here, and then we're all waiting and waiting. And will we get a push back up higher, or will it peter out down in here? We won't know. And there'll be people asking me, right? So do you still think it's going to do that? I won't know. I'll be monitoring that in that moment, but we won't have an answer on whether or not that's going to be the moment where it's going to go push for a real true underside back test or not, right? And of course, like I'm not speaking in absolutes. This would drastically change upon a push up in here to like 340 or something like that, right? But in the event that it does play out like this and it is like the start of a bear, you could see the challenge that we would be facing on things like that. I even took some quick buys happening in here throughout the market when we went into that liquidation there last Friday. But I've even had to close those out in here because ranges are so incredibly difficult and these percentages can be so massive in here. It's just real hard to know in these types of ranges, right? People who are buying and holding and shooting for a bull market, right? Of course, those are like glorious entries, right? But when you're in my position and you're kind of like, I don't know if going into a bull market is really going to be the thing that happens here, or if we're going to produce some really crazy wild ranges down in here, it's different from me, right? And I can change that mentality and be more convicted one way or the other, getting a little bit higher. But it's very obvious that I have to kind of be in this state with where we are currently right now. For our Bitcoin, doing the Wyckoff distribution, up thrust after distribution, and then pulling back. with Ethereum looking like 2021's top. And then, of course, XRP doing these things, right? These are all major concerns currently in this moment today. And the market's really kind of blessing a nice ricochet here in these last couple of days to give people a moment to kind of think. The thing that I do just challenge is, of course, like everybody does, look to social media to get some back scratches, to get tucked into bed at night and to get a warm glass of milk, that everything is going to be all right and everything is going to turn out fantastic. There's a very real chance it doesn't, right? Not from right here. So keep that in mind. Capital preservation for me has been kind of the theme of the moments recently. And I have no problem waiting for prices to go higher and forcing me to have to buy higher by the market telling me a story a little bit more cleanly, right? I don't feel like I have to play as a gambler entirely, which of course a lot of this is gambling, but I don't feel I have to like fully gamble on it. I can let the market go a little higher. I can risk, not getting the best entry in order to get more clarity from the market to tell me that, hey, Ethereum's busting out, Bitcoin's busting out, XRP has totally busted out up in here, and we're not just doing underside backtesting happening, and we're not doing Wyckoff distribution, and we're not doing the same type of ricochets that happen a lot of times after those liquidations from the top. So, for everybody's sake, of course, I cheer for up. As a content creator, I've been through bear markets, right? I've done 2 of them here on this channel. It's not something that I look forward to as being a content creator, but I want to present it to you fairly. And so these are the things that I see right now. These are the concerns that we have right now. And I've shown you things that would, of course, change that picture a little bit. So we'll see how things go in the coming days. And of course, we'll see how the stock market does perform over the next week. And we'll just try to take it kind of day by day. But I hope this was helpful. And of course, wish you the best of luck. So I'll check in with you guys again this week. And you can check out the newsletter over here at blockchainbacker.substack.com. There'll be a new one posted here in the next couple of days. So keep your eyes out for that one. The most recent one has a 52-minute audio recording and really outlining that bear case, which, we obviously just saw a lot of those things play out. So those warning signs did end up manifesting. So we'll see how things go from here. Check out the newsletter. You can also check out bcbacker.com. It's got over 40 videos and 11 hours of content teaching you how to set up your own charts and indicators within TradingView and CoinTrader Pro. There are links within the description of this video to the newsletter at blockchainbacker.substack.com and to bcbacker.com. Otherwise, I want to thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.